The Rune Knight, in all its glory, has served us well. It's carried me through most of the content of this game, and it's probably carried you through most of the content of this game. Hello everyone, my name is Valdes, and it's finally time to return to our Crusader roots, the Royal Guard. From what I've seen so far, it actually seems like there won't be too many changes to our build, which is extremely good news for us coming from Rune Knights. Of course, I could be wrong and everything is still subject to change until we actually have our Royal Guard already. But from what I've seen, we're still going to be going for crit build for PvE, and we're still going for melee damage for PvP. Pretty much exactly how we build our Rune Knights right now, right? We do PvE spear build with crits, and we do sword build with melee damage bonus. So for enchants, we wouldn't really be changing too much. For equipment and accessories, still pretty much gonna be the same. And definitely for sigils, it's still gonna be the same. So we're not gonna be changing too many things from our current build of the Rune Knight. So with that said, why don't we check out what we have on our Rune Knight right now. So this is gonna be our Royal Guard preparation video, but as well as our final Rune Knight build update guide. So starting off with our stats, so this is more or less what we're gonna be having on our War Gods form. So as of making this video, the Royal Guard in the Shura actually has not yet been released yet, but by the time you watch this video, I'm probably a Royal Guard already. So the Royal Guard in Shura is about to be released a few hours from now. So this is our crit build on our Spear Rune Knight. So we currently have 226 crit here, almost 5,000 PvE damage bonus, around 4,000 ignore physical defense. So from what I've seen, the War God stance uses crits using full throttle, which is kind of like the new sacrifice build or Martyr's Reckoning, but for Royal Guard, as well as auto-proccing Moon Slasher or Full Moon Slash. I don't know, I've seen different translations on the skill, but more or less this is probably how I would be distributing our stats. You know, we'd be going a lot into strength, agility, and luck. So for those who are still going to be staying as Rune Knights, this is what I have on my Rune Knight right now. So I'm using the Charleston set for our Spear Rune Knight. We actually get the most crit from this set because we do get some crit and luck from the boots, as well as getting some physical damage bonus from the set effect. So I don't use the King of Resentment set. For some reason, I don't know if it's a bug, but from what I've seen, I'm not getting the right amount of crit damage for the amount of agility that I have. I don't know if it's a bug, but that's just how it is. You could also go for Master of Magic, but there are very minimal cases in which this would be the most effective. Maybe you could use it for TSA, but I would not recommend using it for TR or for team rewards in MVP hunts, because you will have a pretty hard time maintaining your unlimited berserks if you're gonna be going for the Master of Magic set. If you guys want to learn how to do unlimited berserk, there are actually several videos up on YouTube right now made by Immortal, made by Gulaman. You know, like everyone's uploaded that video already. I personally did not upload a video on that. Unlimited berserk is pretty broken for Rune Knights. For accessories, right now I have Pendants of Chaos here, but I'm not yet 100% sure what accessories we're gonna be using for the Royal Guard. I'll have to look it up. I'll probably want something more defensive, but for now, you can't go wrong with Pendant of Chaos for now, at least. Especially if you're a Rune Knight now, this is still gonna be the best accessories for Rune Knights. So I was lucky enough to get a 2-slotted Pendant of Chaos from one of our Monday accessory boxes. For our PvE headwear, we're using the Stylish Cap, Gray Mask, and the Christmas box for our facewear. Now, when we transfer to Royal Guard, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be changing up the mouthwear. I saw there was this mouthwear that I skipped, unfortunately. So it's called the Strawberry Bear Cookie. So it gives you a lot of damage reduction. Gives you 4% physical and magic damage reduction, 3% max HP, as well as a whopping 8% damage reduction against medium enemies. It's unfortunate I don't have it, but I do plan to redeem it soon. Now for the headwear, I think best in slot is still probably Cherry Cream though. It still gives you a lot of damage reduction. But if you're into PvE, Sheriff's Hat is still very good. And for the face wear, I think this is still one of the best face wears you could use. It's just pretty OP. The Christmas box gives you a lot of damage reduction as well as a shield and more PvP damage reduction if you have it at plus 15. For the costume, right now I'm using the Merry Christmas costume, but there are better costumes. I'll probably be changing this up soon, especially when we go for Royal Guard. But for Rune Knight, this is still gonna be one of the best costumes. For the backwear, right now I have the Tome of Snow, but we actually got this other backwear recently. I forgot from where, but we got it. It's called the Sunny and Sky. So it gives us a few stats here and there which are a little bit meh, but what I really want is this. Upon casting a skill, you gain movement speed plus 10%. So I really want this, as well as physical damage for up to 12% for every 20% max HP bonus you have. For our Royal Guard and even for our Rune Knight right now, we actually have a lot of max HP percent. So it's not gonna be too hard for us to reach the maximum 12% physical damage bonus. So I think this is pretty solid. No, pretty OP backwear. So I'm working on refining our backwear right now. I still have it at plus 12 at the moment. So I'm working on getting that to plus 15. Then I'm gonna be using this. Next best in slot is probably this. The Horn Bunny is still very solid option. For cards, it's just the general stuff. Unlike when we were paladins, now we'd be able to use our size and race cards. So if you have those Skell Workers or those Minorus cards, I personally don't have a Skell Worker card, but I do have a Minorus card here. So you'll finally be able to use those. So in general, you just use the appropriate size and race cards, both offensively and defensively. So here we go, Enchants. Now this would have been a problem if you were switching up from different jobs, but from what I mentioned and from what I've seen, it seems like we don't really need to change too much. So my plan is to go for crits for PvE, and I'm still going for melee physical damage for PvP, which I do have ready here. So I do have our presets. So we're going for Fighting Spirit or Melee Boon for PvP, and I'm going for Sharp or Superior Crit for PvE. So on our Spear build, so that's what we're using right now, and we have that all around. Either Sharp or Fighting Spirit or PvP and PvE technique. No, it's just the usuals for enchants. Try to go for luck, you try to go for strength. You know, it's the usuals. The usual stats that you would normally want on crit builds. It's not really new. No, it's been around ever since we've been playing Ragnarok Origin. For skills, of course, we're still using the same. We actually made a pretty in-depth video about Spear Rune Knight and Sword Rune Knight. So if you haven't seen those and you're new to the game and you probably don't know how to build your Rune Knight, be sure to check those out. It's here on our YouTube channel. Also, if you're enjoying the content so far, be sure to like and subscribe. Now for feathers, this would have been a problem back then when we were switching between Lord Knight and Paladin. But from Rune Knight and Royal Guard, I'm not so sure. I think we might still be keeping the same feather setup. Alright, so I'm not yet 100% sure, but I have a feeling that I won't be changing it too much. Maybe, no, just maybe, we might change our Truth Feather. We might go for Order instead. I'm not yet sure on our defensive feathers. But for offensive, I think we'll still be keeping the same setup. This is more or less most optimal for low spender to mid spender. Well, not really mid spender, like low spender feather setup. You'd want Time, Space, Sky, Day, and Valor. For mid to high spenders, normally you'd want Light and Dark here instead of Sky and Day. But since, you know, we're pretty much a low spender here in Ragnarok Origin, so I do have Time, Space, Sky, and Day here, and Valor as our purple feather. For defense feathers, I'm using Terra, Divine, Light, Dark, and Truth. But as I mentioned, I probably changed this up for Order instead, and actually started transitioning our Terra feather into Nature feathers already. So Nature does give us more stats than our Terra feathers, It's just that, you know, I was funneling our time and space feathers towards, well, space and divine. So for statues, if you've been playing the game long enough, you're probably at this point already. We're just, you know, just trying to level everything up. No, you don't have a choice. No, it's not like your resources are going elsewhere. So you just go level up whatever and everything. So for sigils, it actually depends on what type of content you're facing. So like right now, this is my time-space anomaly sigil setup. But normally, if you're going for TR or MVP hunts, I normally swap out impact for maze. For choice maze, you can have maybe 2 or 3 depending on who your priest is. But normally you go for the maze sigils. So for priority, I think from what I remember, we get the most damage output from our meteor, and our starfall and cosmic more or less gives us the same damage output. Impact, I just keep for time space anomaly because we do have that small, we only have a very small time frame for dealing damage. And because we are using Rain of Spears, which is a burst skill, so using the gate sigils won't be too useful, like Gate of Suffering or Endless Nightmare. But when we go Royal Guard, we'll probably be seeing this more, since Royal Guard is more of a sustained DPS kind of character. So we could probably go back to using Gate of Suffering or Endless Nightmare then. And then for PvP, you just use all your defensive sigils, whatever defensive sigils you have. Just use defensive sigils. Don't force using offensive sigils. You're gonna die in PvP if you keep your offensive sigils. No matter what job you're using, even if you're using Warlock or Ranger, ranged units, just use defensive sigils. Unless if you're not dying, then fine, no, go use your offensive sigils. But if you're dying in PvP, which you probably are, if you're one of those players who's, you know, we're crying about meta and all of these things, and then go for the defensive sigils. So I've been talking about how the builds probably won't hurt too much transitioning from Rune Knight to Royal Guard. But this will be the most painful part of changing jobs, regardless of whatever job you're using or you plan to switch to. It's always going to be the cogwheels because this is all RNG. They're extremely hard to get, especially the rare ones. And Rune Knights are extremely dependent on cogwheels. So you're not going to be able to do unlimited berserk, whether on spear or sword, without furious attack. So this is the #1 most important cogwheel skill that you will want for Rune Knight. It's the furious attack. Now it's going to be different for the Royal Guard, definitely. Like right now, I actually have this. I kept this from when we were still a paladin, so I do have this big bully with Holy Light Shield. So I plan to use that when I go back to Royal Guard. I don't really remember what the other paladin cogwheels were, but I'll have to look it up, and I am prepared for that with these. So I do have 153 pieces of Mystic Verus Gacha here. I have 47 Smeldon Cogwheel Fragments here. And I have 17 Titanium for here, no, for resetting our low weight Smeldons. So I've been keeping these for the longest time in preparation for the Royal Guard. Now actually, when I got my Smeldons for my Rune Knight, I stopped using any of these and I just started saving these for when the Royal Guard is released. But right now on our Rune Knight, this is what I'm using for our Spear PvE. So we're using Holy Light Shield, Furious Attack, Charge Attack, Core Overload, Bloodthirst, and Dauntless Order. It's a little bit different for Sword and for PvP. Like normally you wouldn't want to use Charge Attack on Sword. I'd go for something like Omni Chip instead. So for our Nexus engine, I do have presets for both Sword and Spear. So I go for more PvP stats for Sword and PvE stats for Spear. So this is our Spear setup. So here it's more or less the same. Like for the 1 grid modules, that's the only thing I change up. Now it's just the PvE and the PvP stats. So PvE stats for our Spear build. And I use PvP stats for our Sword build. So it's not too complicated. It's very straightforward. So you just focus on whatever stats you need for whichever content you're tackling in Ragnarok Origin, whether PvP or PvE. And the talents are also pretty straightforward. From what I've seen so far, it seems like the Royal Guard doesn't have very game-breaking or game-changing talents. Unlike the Rain of Spears for Rune Knight or Phantom Menace for Guillotine Cross, some jobs here in Ragnarok Origin have very game-changing Nexus engine talents. But from what I've seen for Royal Guard, it seems pretty lackluster and not too important. For the Nebula path, it's also pretty straightforward. Like a lot of the PvE skills you would want are here above, and a lot of the PvP skills you would want are here below. There are also several guides on YouTube about these, so I'm not really gonna touch on this too much. No, it's very straightforward and very intuitive. So these are our mount stats so far. So I'm focusing on Brave, Clever, Furious, and Cute. I've been sacrificing Lovely because I get magic damage reduction elsewhere. I can't really see what stats these give us now. For some reason, it's not indicated here anymore. But from what I remember, this is attack, this is HP, I think this is damage bonus, and this is probably physical damage reduction and magic damage reduction. So I've decided to, just for balance, because we do get magic damage reduction from our GTB puppet cards, and I also try to focus more on magic damage reduction for our enchants, I decided to sacrifice our magic damage reduction here in our mount traits. For pets, Genesis is probably one of the most OP pets right now in the game, I think, in my opinion. So this is one of my favorites. I'm using Genesis. 1-1 is still 1-1. This is just a tier 0-1-1, but 1-1 still does wonders for me. I do like using Earthlord both for PvE and PvP. Extremely useful for both scenarios. And Sohi, we go way back. We go way back from we were still a Lord Knight all the way till we became a Paladin and then into a Rune Knight. And I plan to take Sohi until we go Royal Guard. No, this is pretty OP pet. It's an A pet, but extremely underrated for both PvE and PvP. No, definitely one of my favorite pets, the Sohi. Medals are also very straightforward. Oh, oops. Alright, let's go. Try to level up your rock medal here. You just try to get a healthy balance of everything, in my opinion. You're gonna want to use a lot of these stats, except for Medal of Wisdom, of course, which I leveled up to 20 because I was dumb. But I tried to level up everything except the pet stats, or maybe a little bit of the pet stats. But you'd want a little bit of everything for every scenario of the game, whether PvE or PvP. So same for Medal of Glory and Medal of Fate. So here are my stats right now. I'm not gonna go too in-depth about them. Just know that you would want a healthy balance of these all around. That's just my opinion, and that's just how I play the game. So that's about it for our Rune Knight. So this is the last time you're gonna see our character as a Rune Knight. Our videos moving forward are gonna be about our Royal Guard. So I know there are several videos and guides right now about Royal Guards and Shuras online. But in my opinion, it's still too early. I'd want to learn more about the War God stance, the Eminent Grace stance. And then I'll make our guides about our Royal Guard. So if you guys are still playing Ragnarok Origin and you guys have been following our journey as a Lord Knight and then into a Paladin and then into a Rune Knight and then now the Royal Guard, or if this is the first time you've seen our videos, or maybe you want to see more about our Royal Guard, be sure to like and subscribe. Turn on that notification bell so you don't miss out on our new videos. Hope to see you all on the next one.